Military operations across these contested areas have fundamentally redrawn territorial boundaries, creating a fragmented landscape where control shifts based on tactical advantages and strategic priorities. Israeli Defense Forces now occupy significant portions of northern Gaza, displacing approximately 90% of the population and establishing buffer zones that extend several kilometers inland from the coastline. These military positions encompass all border crossings with Egypt, effectively transforming the remaining Palestinian-controlled areas into isolated enclaves surrounded by Israeli checkpoints and secured corridors. The strategic importance of captured territories reveals calculated efforts to control population movement and essential infrastructure rather than simple land acquisition. Israeli forces prioritize locations that provide oversight of water treatment facilities, electrical substations, and telecommunications networks serving Palestinian civilian populations. Control of these installations allows military commanders to regulate essential services during tactical operations. The Rafah crossing area holds particular significance because it represents Gaza's primary connection to the outside world beyond Israeli territory, making its control essential for maintaining oversight of Palestinian movement and supply lines. Hamas has utilized an extensive tunnel network to move fighters and supplies beneath Gaza's surface, creating underground command centers that span significant portions of the territory. These tunnel systems feature multiple levels with passages running deep enough to resist conventional munitions, equipped with air filtration systems and secure communication networks. The tunnels include access points that allow movement of equipment and personnel without surface exposure, though Israeli military operations have destroyed substantial portions of this infrastructure in areas like Rafah and Khan Yunis. Urban warfare in densely populated areas transforms civilian neighborhoods into military battlegrounds where traditional engagement rules become impossible to maintain. Palestinian fighters utilize residential buildings as firing positions and weapon storage sites, while Israeli forces respond with precision strikes targeting military objectives within civilian structures. The high population density in contested urban areas means that every military action affects hundreds of civilian residents who cannot evacuate due to transportation restrictions and security cordons. Combat operations in these environments require specialized tactics designed for room-to-room fighting in structures containing both armed combatants and civilian families. Civilian populations have become unwilling participants in territorial battles through their integration into military strategies employed by both sides. Palestinian families receive instructions to report Israeli troop movements and provide shelter for fighters operating in their neighborhoods. Israeli civilians living in border communities serve as early warning systems for incoming attacks and provide intelligence about infiltration attempts. These involvement patterns create complications under international humanitarian law, as traditional distinctions between combatants and non-combatants become increasingly difficult to maintain during sustained urban combat operations. Technology enables remote monitoring and control of territory through sensor networks and automated surveillance systems that operate continuously without requiring human personnel in forward positions. Israeli forces deploy ground sensors along infiltration routes that detect movement patterns and transmit real-time alerts to command centers located behind defensive lines. Palestinian technical units install hidden cameras and listening devices throughout contested areas to monitor Israeli patrol schedules and communications. Drone surveillance provides constant overhead monitoring of territorial boundaries, allowing both sides to track movements and coordinate responses without exposing personnel to direct combat risks. International borders have been affected by the expanded conflict as military operations extend into Egyptian and Lebanese territory through cross-border activities and attacks targeting locations outside the immediate combat zone. Egyptian security forces have discovered numerous tunnel entrances along the Rafah border, indicating underground networks that bypass official crossing points. Lebanese border areas experience frequent bombardments as Israeli forces target positions supporting Palestinian militants. These cross-border operations create diplomatic tensions with neighboring countries and complicate international efforts to contain the conflict within its original geographical boundaries. Economic impact on local populations intensifies as territorial instability destroys agricultural land, commercial districts, and industrial facilities that provided employment before the conflict escalation. Palestinian farmers cannot access significant portions of their agricultural land due to security restrictions and active combat operations in rural areas. Small businesses throughout Gaza and southern Israel remain closed because their locations fall within military operation zones or lack reliable utilities. Unemployment rates in contested territories reach extreme levels as normal economic activity becomes impossible under constant security threats and movement restrictions. Humanitarian aid delivery faces enormous challenges in contested zones where aid workers cannot guarantee safe passage, and distribution points frequently become military targets. International relief organizations require military escorts to reach Palestinian communities, but these escorts make aid convoys appear as legitimate military targets to opposing forces. Aid supplies accumulate at border crossings for extended periods, while security inspections verify that shipments contain no materials that could support military operations. Medical supplies and food deliveries often reach intended recipients well past expiration dates due to inspection delays and transportation security requirements. The conflict has created refugee populations exceeding 1.8 million displaced persons who require emergency shelter and basic services that overwhelmed humanitarian systems cannot provide adequately. These refugees concentrate in temporary camps that lack proper sanitation facilities, medical care, and educational resources for displaced children. Many families move multiple times as combat operations shift territorial control, and previously safe areas become active battlegrounds. Displacement patterns show that families with economic resources evacuate contested areas early, while impoverished populations remain trapped because they cannot afford transportation or temporary housing in safer locations. These territorial changes and population displacements create facts on the ground that will influence future negotiations regardless of formal political agreements. The scale and coordination required for such extensive military operations raises questions about how such comprehensive planning could proceed without detection by intelligence agencies. The intelligence war tasked with monitoring these exact scenarios. Israeli intelligence agencies faced their most serious operational failure in decades when Hamas launched its coordinated attack on October 7, 2023, catching Mossad and other security services completely off guard despite extensive surveillance capabilities. The former chief of Mossad later admitted that the organization had zero advanced knowledge of the attack, describing the intelligence lapse as unprecedented in the agency's history. This failure occurred despite Hamas conducting extensive preparations involving thousands of fighters, over 5,000 rockets, and sophisticated logistical coordination that should have generated detectable intelligence signatures across multiple collection systems. The scale of Hamas's preparations required substantial infrastructure development, weapons stockpiling, and training operations that involved significant numbers of personnel over extended periods. Intelligence analysts who had built careers on monitoring Palestinian militant capabilities found themselves blindsided by coordination networks and weapons systems that exceeded their threat assessments. The attack preparations included tunnel construction, rocket manufacturing, fighter training, and communications coordination that operated for months without triggering Israeli intelligence alerts or generating actionable warnings from human sources within Palestinian territories. Hamas employed sophisticated operational security measures that effectively neutralized Israeli surveillance capabilities throughout the planning period. The organization compartmentalized information among different operational units, used multiple communication channels to avoid pattern recognition, and likely exploited vulnerabilities in Israeli monitoring systems that focused on traditional threat indicators. Palestinian forces developed supply chains and command structures that operated outside established surveillance parameters, while Israeli intelligence concentrated on known weapons smuggling routes and recognized militant leaders. The timing of the attack demonstrated strategic planning that exploited both symbolic significance and operational advantages. Hamas launched the assault on the 50th anniversary of the Yom Kippur War during a Jewish holiday, deliberately choosing a moment when Israeli alertness might be reduced. The attack coincided with internal Israeli political divisions and government efforts that may have contributed to decreased readiness within security apparatus. This timing, combined with the complete surprise achieved by Hamas, created maximum psychological impact while providing tactical advantages during the initial assault phases. Intelligence collection priorities had emphasized monitoring traditional rocket production facilities and tunnel construction activities, but missed sophisticated weapons assembly operations conducted in civilian workshops and private residences throughout Gaza. The failure extended to human intelligence networks that failed to recruit sources within Palestinian technical units responsible for advanced weapons development and coordination planning. Israeli agencies focused on established threat patterns while Hamas developed entirely new operational methodologies specifically designed to avoid detection by conventional surveillance techniques. The intelligence breakdown revealed systematic blind spots in Israeli surveillance methodologies that Palestinian strategists exploited with devastating effectiveness. Mossad analysts concentrated on familiar indicators and known threat vectors, while Hamas created operational frameworks that functioned outside traditional intelligence collection parameters. The organization successfully concealed weapons testing, training exercises, and logistics coordination involving thousands of personnel while maintaining complete operational security against some of the world's most sophisticated intelligence organizations. Post-attack analysis revealed that Palestinian forces had maintained secure communications and coordination capabilities that rendered Israeli signal intelligence collection efforts ineffective throughout the preparation period. Hamas utilized communication security measures that created undetectable coordination pathways, allowing commanders to manage complex operations without generating interceptable intelligence. The successful concealment of such extensive preparations demonstrated fundamental weaknesses in traditional surveillance methodologies when facing adversaries who understand and actively counter established intelligence collection techniques. The failure had cascading effects throughout Israeli intelligence operations, forcing complete re-evaluation of threat assessment procedures and collection priorities. Intelligence agencies discovered that their focus on conventional threats had created vulnerabilities that Hamas exploited through unconventional planning and execution. Methods. The organization's ability to coordinate such extensive operations while avoiding detection highlighted the limitations of technology-dependent intelligence gathering when confronting adversaries who employ sophisticated counterintelligence techniques. International intelligence sharing arrangements provided no advance warning of the attack, with United States agencies confirming they possessed no prior knowledge of Hamas preparations. This lack of international intelligence support compounded the Israeli failure and demonstrated that even extensive intelligence cooperation networks could not compensate for fundamental collection and analysis shortcomings. The complete absence of warning indicators across multiple intelligence systems revealed coordination failures that extended beyond individual agency limitations. The extent of advanced planning that remained hidden from elite intelligence agencies exposed the evolving nature of modern conflict where traditional surveillance advantages face unprecedented challenges. Hamas demonstrated that determined adversaries could conduct extensive military preparations while maintaining operational security against sophisticated intelligence organizations through careful planning and advanced security measures. The successful concealment of such comprehensive attack preparations forced intelligence agencies worldwide to reconsider their capabilities and methodologies when confronting adversaries who specifically design operations to defeat established surveillance techniques. This intelligence failure created immediate concerns about regional stability as neighboring governments struggled to assess the implications of such sophisticated attack capabilities appearing without warning. The demonstration that extensive military preparations could proceed undetected raised questions about similar threats that might be developing elsewhere in the region, forcing diplomatic and security officials across the Middle East to urgently reevaluate their own intelligence assessments and regional threat calculations. Regional